Hey everyone. So today's story is not necessarily about the death of Betty White, but, well, I guess it is sort of the death of Betty White, and more about the death of Betty's house. One of my newest artifacts you can see it's like a card, and I forget what they call those things, regards card or something like that, with Betty White Ludden. Her married name she was married to Alan Ludden for about 18 years till he passed away. And this is some of her stationery that my friend Mia Alta gave to me. She sent them to me not that long ago. So I actually have some things that belong to Betty White. Now, Betty White died on New Year's Eve of 2021, just a couple of weeks before her 100th birthday. Now, TMZ published Betty White's death certificate. And you can see the TMZ watermark, but they redacted a lot of information, which means removed or covered up. And one of the things well, you can see that Betty died of cerebral vascular accident, basically a stroke. She had it 6 days earlier. And she died in her home in Brentwood. She was cremated, and the location of her ashes or her cremains is currently unknown. There were lots of theories about what she might do with them, but currently we don't know where Betty White's final remains, her physical remains are. And I also wanted to know Betty's address. I knew where Betty lived because she lived there for so long. But to get her exact address, I had to go to a different source. And this different source is actually a Rolodex that belonged to Brock Hudson. If you saw one of my older videos, I went through this Rolodex one by one, talking about all the people who are in it. And I know Betty was in this. I haven't looked at it for a while. So I'm going to look up Betty White's address in here. And let's see, Beverly Hills Mercedes, Mary Clark, Mike Diamond Plumbing. Let's see. I know there's some really good names in here. I'm not going to be able to find these now. But I'll look straight under the under the W's and see what I can find here. There's got to be something. I know Robert Reed was in here. Yeah, he was in the R's. Robert Reed. Under Betsy. Just kidding. Okay, W. All right, Nancy Walker. We love Nancy Walker. Marion Wagner. Robert Wagner. Gary Wayne. Jessica Walter. John Warner. Let's see, Westinghouse. West Side Door. Matt West. Come on, Betty. Here she is, Betty White. Her address, her phone number, 476-9281. I bet you that's the same phone number that I called when my friend Kim and I made the prank phone call to her. It wasn't prank, we asked for her, and then she told us very kindly to hang up the phone and never dial it again. But you can see her address is 506 North Carmelina. That was on the north side of Sunset Boulevard. Marilyn lived right off of the south side, off of 5th Helena Drive, right off Carmelina. Anyway, the other side of Sunset. Betty lived there for many, many years. We stopped to see Betty's house, or the remains of Betty's house, late last year. They decided to tear it down. It was sold, and it was always going to be a tear down because it's a piece of really prime real estate in Brentwood. And we went to visit it, so we're going to take you there now.
During her career, Betty was nominated 21 times for Emmy Awards, and she won 5. One for guest hosting Saturday Night Live. She also won for the Golden Girls and the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Now, this home that Betty and Alan Ludden bought, they bought it in 1978 for $170,000. 3,000 square feet, sits on 3/4 of an acre, which is a large piece of property in one of the most beautiful neighborhoods in Los Angeles, Brentwood. It had a 3-car garage and a guest house, 5 bedrooms, and 6 bathrooms. They say they had game nights, and Gloria and Jimmy Stewart and Dinah Shore and Burt Reynolds would join them. Now, Alan Ludden, her third husband, preceded her in death by 40 years, and Betty remained devoted to Alan Ludden for the rest of her life, mentioning to Larry King, "Once you've had the best, who needs the rest?" Now, her longevity is not attributed to her diet. Friends say she lived on red vines, hot dogs, French fries, and Diet Coke. She also said about vodka, it's kind of a hobby. A friend of mine once waited on her, and she told my friend, "I want a Grey Goose martini and keep 'em coming." Betty White had a stroke on Christmas Day of 2021, and she died on New Year's Eve, December 31st. Her body was cremated. She was 99 years old, 3 weeks short of her 100th birthday. There were all sorts of celebrations planned, magazines and television specials for her 100th birthday, and like a true show business person, she left them begging for more. The house was sold in 2022 for $10.5 million. Now, it is a comparatively large piece of property around Los Angeles, or that neighborhood anyway, and it was sold for land value, which basically means they're going to tear it down. And in typical LA fashion, they did. The home that Betty White lived in for 50 years was torn down in December of 2022. Now, before this, Julian's Auction House had an auction of Betty White's belongings, and the proceeds went to the Morris Animal Foundation and the LA Zoo, which she supported for over 50 years. She was very active in animal rights campaigns. Betty's house fixtures, personal belongings, memorabilia, and I'm so jealous of this, her bedroom door. Betty once said about the thought of dying, "My mother taught me this. We know the answers to everything, or we can find out the answers. But the one we can't find out is what happens at that moment. You can think you know, you can be religious, but you don't know for certain. I just find it fascinating. I'm curious, and the older I get, the curiouser I get." Betty was asked one time, "What have you not done in show business that you always wanted to do?" Her answer? Robert Redford.
So that was very, very sad to say goodbye to Betty and also her wonderful house of many, many years. So when we were visiting the house, actually, at 506 North Carmelina, we managed to scavenge some pieces of it. And there's a photograph of the house when Betty lived there, and this is a photograph of me on the property, which you just saw a minute ago in the video, with the bricks. And I have hacked these bricks up in little pieces, and you can own one now. If you look at the bottom of this video, there is a link where you could buy some of Betty White's house from me. All our stuff is still in storage. I got to raise money somehow, and this is the real deal. I was there, Betty White's house. Long gone. They're not making these anymore, and this is me with them on the property at 506 North Carmelina. So if you're interested in buying a piece of Betty White's house, just click the link below this video for one of Betty's bits, and I would appreciate it because that supports us and what we do and all of our artifacts that are in storage until we can find a new home for them. So Betty's bits available below. So thank you very much for watching, and I appreciate your time and I appreciate your attention. And until next time.
You heard me.
If I had a dick, this is where I'd tell you to suck it.